even you.
Any fan of the Star Wars franchise is aware of the role that the Force plays in the lives of the Jedi, and it is undoubtedly a concept that needs no introduction. It is essentially the energy field that is created out of all life in the universe together, and thereby it resides in every life form. It can be explained as an omnipresent power in the universe which has existed in the galaxy for thousands of years. The Force also has many sides to it, and it has helped entities ranging from Jedi such as Yoda to even the Sith Lords to gain their powers. Let us explain the Force in detail and look at the inner workings of this mysterious concept that powers the entire Star Wars universe. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
We don't have time for this. We gotta get...
How did the Force first originate? The Force has been part of the Star Wars lore for an extended period, and its existence dates back to over 25,000 years before the Galactic Civil War. According to a theory, philosophers from all over the universe had gathered on Tython in 364,053 BBY to share their knowledge, and this is the moment where the Force was just discovered. In 25,793 BBY, some scholars based on Tython started using their knowledge to gain access to the Force's powers. The planet of Tython was also surrounded by mystic energy that we know as the Force, and the Tythons soon discovered two moons named Bogan and Ashla that each represented one side of the Force. They soon realized that balance played a critical role, raising questions regarding what balance truly means. While the Jedi prophecy stated that true balance would only be attained after the Chosen One gets rid of the dark side, the Tythons believed that the light side of the Force must be equal to the dark side. Over the course of the franchise, there has never been a true balance between the two sides, as one of them has always had the upper hand. Jedi Master Keetu also suggests that we should not be prisoners to either side, but rather strive to live in balance, using both dark and light in harmony. Numerous species have their own beliefs regarding the Force, as well as their own ways of interpreting and using its powers. One suggests that the midi-chlorians, the microscopic life forms in one's blood, essentially form a relationship between its host and the Force and allow them to access its power. These midi-chlorians essentially connected two aspects of the Force, the living Force and the cosmic Force. They enabled any Force-sensitive being to be able to feel the Force's energy, which was said to have originated on the wellspring of life. Some believed that the Force's origins came from the ethereal realm of Mortis, while some thought that the Force had created the galaxy. The Jedis believed that they were the instruments of the Force's will and should do whatever the Force guided them to do. They also became the most widespread users of the Force until the 100-Year Darkness era, when the Jedi split into the Jedi Order and the Sith Order. When a rogue Jedi resorted to using passion instead of calmness to use the Force, this rogue Jedi was then banished, and a whole group of Jedi left in protest and created the Sith Order. This led to the Force being divided into the light side of the Force that was used by the Jedi, as well as the dark side of the Force that was used by the Sith. The Jedi used Force to protect others and were committed to serving others, while the Sith resorted to using emotion and violence. This led to many clashes between the Jedi and the Sith, and they fought countless wars using the Force. During the Old Republic era, both these sides used lightsabers that were powered by kyber crystals that were connected to the Force. Their wars also led to the large-scale destruction all over the galaxy until the new Galactic Republic emerged after the Jedi won their war against the Sith. During this era, the path of the Open Hand cult that resided on the planet of Dalna expressed their views regarding the Force. They believed that the Force should not be used and that using the Force would be a way of striking against the universe and causing destruction. The path started fighting against the Jedi, but also allowed Force-sensitive individuals to join their cult as long as they suppressed their powers. The dark side also eventually came back to haunt the Jedi, and Darth Bane revived the entire Sith Order to ensure they don't fight among themselves. Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn had come across the Chosen One, aka a young Anakin Skywalker, who was prophesied to surpass every other Force-sensitive being's powers. Skywalker received training and went on to become the most powerful Jedi Knight of all time before he was swayed swayed over to the dark side of the Force by Darth Sidious. The Jedi Order was later destroyed during the Imperial era, and a few survivors were forced into hiding after Darth Sidious started reigning over the galaxy. A lot of efforts were also made to eradicate all memory of the Jedi, and the Church of the Force then worked as an underground movement that tried to keep people's faith in the Force alive. However, more and more people were getting skeptical about the Force, and the Empire's military also started believing that the Force was an ancient religion. Eventually, Anakin Skywalker fulfilled the prophecy and died saving his son, Luke Skywalker, and then became one with the Force. The Chosen One's return to the Force also marked the downfall of the Sith as balance was restored in the universe. The prophecy had indicated that the Chosen One would cause the Sith's destruction, but they did not expect that this death would cause the defeat of the entire dark side of the Force. Luke Skywalker then started making up for the losses suffered by the Jedi and also became a Jedi Master. He started teaching the ways of the Force to a new generation, and one of his students was his nephew, Ben Solo. Ben's strength was also noticed by Force Supreme Leader Snoke, who was quite a powerful user of the Force. He tried to convince Solo to turn to the dark side, and Luke Skywalker soon sensed that Ben was increasingly showing dark tendencies. He tried to kill him before Ben embraced his dark side completely, but Ben felt quite betrayed by Luke's actions and even burned down a Jedi temple out of anger. Besides the Jedi and the Sith, a number of other organizations such as the Knights of Ren, the Dagoan Order, and the Night Sisters also wielded the Force. There were also some groups that worshiped the Force's power, and some of these groups were Church of the Force, the Path of the Open Hand, and so on. There were also some Force-sensitive beings who did not belong to any particular faction, and one such being was Ahsoka Tano.
The Force is what gives the Jedi his power. It's an energy field created by all living...
Understanding the Force and what it is like. The Force is an energy that connects all life forms in the galaxy, and it exists in the form of midi-chlorians and a life form that enables them to harness the energy of the Force. Furthermore, living beings harness the energies of the living Force, which then turns into cosmic force once they die and become one with the Force. There are numerous origin stories regarding the Force, but they are merely speculation, and the Force remains a mysterious power in the universe. Only Force-sensitive beings could wield the Force's power, but it existed in all life forms and could be extracted from their bodies. Force-sensitive beings could even sense a disturbance in the Force's energy whenever someone loses their life. However, it must be noted that the Force is not just magic, and the Jedi Knight named Gelinate even exists that the Force exists everywhere. The Force could be found in anything that has life, and the sunset prayer done by the Guardians of the Wills even declared that the Force was eternal. It would continue to exist forever and was stronger in some places and weaker in others. Force-sensitive beings could easily sense a strong presence of Force in certain areas, and they sometimes didn't have to put in any effort to sense it or look for it. Typically, Force sensitivity could be passed down from generation to generation. For instance, the entire Skywalker family, including Anakin, Luke, Leia, and Ben Solo, could wield the Force. In some rare cases, the Force could not be inherited. One such example of this is Darth Sidious, who did not inherit his father's Force powers. In some rare cases, siblings born to the same parents did not share the same Force powers. Zerah and Dara Leonis are good examples of this, as Zerah never managed to wield the Force, while Dara turned out to be Force-sensitive. In order to master the art of using the Force, one had to undergo extensive training and get rid of any negative emotions, especially if they used the light side of the Force. It was a lifelong commitment, and one had to give up their family and any personal relationships to follow the Jedi Code and practice the ways of the Force. The Order encouraged its members to be compassionate for others, but even advocated that they avoid feeling fear, anger, or any such negative emotions. The Jedi were identified based on their midi-chlorian levels, which were quite high for any Force-sensitive beings. The Order preferred to recruit Force-sensitive children known as younglings so that they could give them proper training right from a young age. Two Force-sensitive individuals were connected through a Force bond that allowed them to communicate with each other even if they were on entirely different planets. Jedi Master Avar Kriss's Force bond was so strong that it allowed her to form an entire communication network to talk to multiple Jedi simultaneously. The Force was perceived in different ways by different Jedi and Sith Lords, and they all had their own views regarding this mystic force of energy. While Jedi Knight Elzer Man saw the Force as an endless ocean, the Wookiee Burryaga Akabari thought of the Force as a huge tree with many branches and deep roots. The group known as the Path of the Open Hand was of the view that the Force was being abused by its users and that the Force also strikes back. They believed that if someone used the Force to save a life, the Force would ensure that another life was taken in its place. The Force is present in all living things, and it is also known as the third or the second side for the Chiss. The Magus perceive the Force as beyond and believe it is only present in the afterlife, while the Night Sisters think of the Force as magic that can only be gained on the lands of Dathomir. While different cultures perceive the Force differently, it is certain that it exists everywhere in the galaxy and is eternal.
Fire on that cruiser!
Exploring the four main aspects of the Force. To attain mastery over the Force, one had to undergo a lot of training and even practice in depth before finally being able to use it to their benefit. The Force can also be broken down into four major aspects that all complement each other to create an energy field that binds the universe together. These aspects of the Force are as follows. Number 1. The Living Force. The Living Force was an aspect of the Force that encouraged the users to focus on the present and get rid of any emotions. It motivated the users to embrace the present, and it was the idea that the Force is here and now, and one shouldn't ponder too much on the future. This aspect was especially promoted by Qui-Gon Jinn, and it also suggested that the Force can be felt in all individuals. Number 2. The Unifying Force. This aspect of the Force essentially binds the whole universe together. People who believed in the Unifying Force thought there was no light or dark side, and that the Force saw everyone as equal. Furthermore, this view also promotes that nothing in the universe is good or bad, and opposes the Living Force's view that is focused on the present. Instead, the Unifying Force believes in destiny and even looks forward to the future. Yoda is a known follower of the Unifying Force, and this aspect of the Force enabled its practitioners to have a lot of visions for the future. Number 3. The Cosmic Force. The Jedi especially work towards a common goal of becoming one with the Force, and they use the Cosmic Force's energy to connect with the Force. The energy generated from one's living Force eventually gets fed into the Cosmic Force, which enables them to bind with the Force and communicate with the world even after death. The Jedi used this aspect of the Force to become a Force ghost, which enabled them to appear in front of the Jedi even after dying. Number 4. The Physical Force. The Physical Force was concerned with powers such as the Force Push, Force Lightning, Force Telepathy, and so on. It included any aspect of the Force that included using any physical powers. From the ability to levitate to performing Force chokes or Force Lightning, the Physical Force included all physical powers and abilities granted to Force-sensitive individuals. What are some of the unique powers and abilities of the Force? The Force is not just a power one has, but rather the energy that binds the universe together and helps all living beings gain powers. Any Force-sensitive entity could gain a range of powers by channeling its inner energy and using the Force. Both the Jedi and the Sith were able to manipulate the Force, but their level of power depended on the number of midi-chlorians they had. Force-sensitive creatures could perform telekinesis and even look into the future, and they even had a range of other powers, such as the ability to make someone fall asleep. It also enabled them to manipulate someone mentally, and Jedi mystics could even use the Force to see events in the future and make predictions and prophecies based on it. Force users also had precognition powers. They could sense it when someone was on their way to attack them, or even figure out ways to move across the hyperspace. The Force also enabled its users to gain vast reflexes even without any training, and they were also stronger and more resilient than other beings. The Force gave them enough strength to crush things with their bare hands, survive fatal injuries, and even jump across huge distances. During battles, Force-sensitive beings could harness the Force's energy to become more powerful and increase their speed and agility. Of course, there was some difference in the way that the Jedi and Sith Lords used the Force. All Force-sensitive users shared some common powers, such as telepathy and telekinesis. Still, some special powers could only be used depending on the user's intention and stance with respect to the Force. The Jedi trained their younglings to use Force energy to protect others, gain wisdom, and manipulate matter, and they even harnessed the Force by establishing a peaceful state of mind. On the other other hand, the dark side of the Force depended upon using their passion for harnessing the energy, and their powers were also quite dangerous. For instance, the dark side of the Force could be used to perform a Force choke or Force lightning, which were both used by the Sith to torture or kill their victims. The Force choke involved making a claw hand gesture to strangle the opponent, while Force lightning could disfigure them. The dark side of the Force was used to force one's way into their opponent's mind, while the Jedi typically used the light side of the Force to influence their opponents by using mind tricks. The Force's energies could also be used to preserve one's consciousness even after one died, but the Jedi and the Sith had different ways of doing this. The dark side could transfer their souls into another living being's body, or even bind it to a relic or an object, while the Jedi would turn into Force spirits and become immortal beings after emerging with the Force. Some of the most incredible things that the Force can accomplish. Number 1. Transferring life essence. The Force had the ability to accomplish a number of things, including its ability to share some portion of one's life essence with a different person to help them heal from any injuries. This ability was known in the Mandalorian series, where Grogu uses this ability to transfer some of his life essence to Greef Karga. It is also seen in Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, when Ben Solo resurrects Rey by transferring his life essence to her. Ben even ended up transferring all his life essence to Rey, which helped resurrect her, but resulted in his death. Number 2. Dropping thought bombs. The thought bombs were one of the most dangerous things that the Force can accomplish, and it could be created through an old Sith ritual. After successfully creating the thought bomb, the Sith could use it to destroy every single Force-sensitive being in their vicinity. This did not just apply to opposing powers, and the thought bomb was especially dangerous because it could eradicate every Force-sensitive being without considering their allegiance. Darth Bane had used this bomb to destroy 2 organizations, the Brotherhood of Darkness and the Army of Light. Number 3. Creating new life. As opposed to destroying life, the Force could also create new life. This ability of the Force was only briefly explored in Star Wars: Revenge of the Sith, when it was used to create Anakin Skywalker. Before Palpatine betrayed Darth Plagueis the Wise, he used his Force abilities to create Anakin by manipulating midichlorians. Only very few powerful beings in the galaxy have the ability to bend midichlorians to their will and create new beings who are also gifted at using the Force. Number 4. Force projection. Force projection is the process by which anyone can project an image of themselves across the galaxy. We had once seen Luke Skywalker use this ability in Star Wars: The Last Jedi, and it is an action that requires a lot of force. Force projection was also quite risky, and it could weaken or even kill its user if done for too long or over great distances. It was advisable to not use this ability more than once, as it required an extremely high amount of concentration as well as Force energy. Number 5. Force sense. Force sense is the ability to sense things around them, and a number of Jedi and Sith depend on this ability. By using his Force sense, Obi-Wan had once sensed that Alderaan was being destroyed, and he could even feel the planet's pain and hear its residents' voices before they died. It is an ability that allows Force wielders to be aware of what is going on around them, and it has also saved their lives on many occasions. What is balancing the Force, and how is it done? There have been a lot of talks about the Force being balanced, and it seems to be a crucial task that needs to be done in order to keep the universe in balance. Obi-Wan even mentioned the balancing of the Force in The Phantom Menace, and he stated that Anakin might be the one to finally balance the Force. The Jedi also believed that the Chosen One would bring about the Sith's downfall, and there have been some debates about whether Anakin or Luke is the Chosen One. However, all these theories are centered on the fact that the Jedi are the ultimate good, and the Sith must be eradicated. When Luke was teaching Rey to use the Force, he states that the world is made of life, death, decay, and renewal, and that the balance is at the center of all these things. Furthermore, the early Jedi also understood the importance of both sides of the Force, and the first Jedi temple shown during Act 2 also has a mosaic of the very first Jedi. This mosaic shows both his light and dark sides, and Phantom Menace also explores the themes of coexisting and balance. The Sith are primarily known for acting on their primal desires, and this is not necessarily a bad thing that affects the Force's balance. However, this does become a problem when the Sith use the dark side of the Force for their own benefit, and this entire issue was also addressed in a story arc in the Clone Wars. Anakin travels to a strange planet with 3 Force-sensitive beings. These beings include a brother who belongs to the dark side, a sister from the light side, and a father who just tries to balance the two of them. While the brother belongs to the dark side, he does not pose any danger to his family until he starts using the dark side for his own benefit. It appears that there can't be any balance without the Jedi because they make sure that the Sith don't misuse the Force. The dark side is an essential component that ensures balance in the universe, as long as they don't start using the Force for personal goals. At this time, the Jedi step into the picture as they believe that they should serve the Force. However, the Jedi barely serve the Force in the prequel trilogy and blindly fight wars against the Separatists. They should be serving the will of the Force, but their blind allegiance to the Republic helped the Sith win that war. If the Jedi had served the Force instead of the Republic, the balance would have been maintained, and they might have won that war. Furthermore, the Jedi also discouraged the Force users from showing any emotions, and they go as far as to separate them from their families and forbid romantic relations. This extreme action also leads the characters to disobey orders and go out of their way to perform actions that might throw off the balance. It is suggested that the middle ground between the two sides of the Force is love, and the Jedi are out of balance because they are deprived of feeling any emotions or love. Love could encourage the Jedi to accept their emotions instead of suppressing them, and it would also teach the Sith to use their emotions for others' benefit instead of their own. Eventually, we also see two opposite sides of the Force come together in the form of Rey and Kylo in order to defeat Palpatine. This is a classic example of the balance of the Force, wherein the light and dark sides work together and coexist to maintain the balance. Conclusion. To sum it up, the Force is an essential part of the Star Wars universe, and any being who could harness the Force's energy immediately attains a status of power just due to their association with it. It is the energy that drives the entire galaxy, and it connects all life forms together. And if you like our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks, everyone!